Hey there, it's Olivia Sana here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you a big unhaul. I am clearing out some space from my shelves that is very much needed. I've got loads of different categories to go through here: duplicates, DNFs, books I didn't like, did like, unread ones that I'm still unhauling. So let's get right down to the books that are leaving my shelves. We are going to start by whizzing through the easiest section to get through, and that is the duplicates. This does happen to me sometimes and does not often happen, but we've got quite a stack here. So first of all, I've got the hardcover of I Did Something Bad by Pyae Thet. I'm actually very excited to read this, and I typically like by hardcover as my preferred format. I'm not a paperback person, but the paperbacks of this series are gorgeous and I actually prefer the look of them to the hardbacks, so I'm going to pass on my hardback of this and I've got the paperback instead now. I tend to prefer finished copies over proofs, which again is a bit controversial to some people, but that's just what I prefer. And so I was sent a finished copy as well as a proof of We Are Always Tender With Our Dead by Eric LaRocca, so I won't be keeping the proof, but I will be keeping my finished hardback copy. I also treated myself to the Kingfisher Illumicrate set, and so I don't need the duplicates that's created, which is a proof of A House of Good Bones by Kingfisher and also this paperback copy of The Hollow Places by Kingfisher. That's it for the duplicates. So now we're moving on to my DNFs, of which I have a couple. I have here Gorgeous Gruesome Faces by Linda Cheng. This is a K-pop young adult horror book, and I read the first 120 pages, which is quite a way into it, and I decided to DNF. This is largely to do with the fact that I just wasn't finding it that scary. I also feel like it was just really straightforward with its storyline and I wanted a bit more. I wasn't feeling on edge. I wasn't loving the K-pop elements. I do like books with K-pop elements even though I'm not a K-pop fan myself, but yeah, this just wasn't doing it for me the way that I wanted it to, so I decided to let this one go. Similar story for Afterlove by Tanya. Byrne. I read the first 50 pages of this, so a little bit less, but I just wasn't very invested in the story. I was reading these 50 pages and I was having difficulty concentrating on the book, and that doesn't usually happen to me, which I just decided was a sign that I was uninterested in the characters. And even though it already set up the concept of the Reaper, which is the key thing that I was going to be interested in, I just wasn't clicking with the book, and so I thought, you know what, I just need to let it go. And it's one that I've had for a really long time on my shelves, and if I'm just not gelling with it, I'm not gelling with it, and that's that. And then I DNF'd Stars in Smoke by Mary Lou. This is a young adult book where a pop star turns out to be a spy, or is invited to be a spy, and he gets teamed up with this girl on the cover here who is like an actual spy, and he's just a pop star, but they need him for the mission, and so he gets laced into it. When I was younger, I was very much one of those spy people. I love assassin stories now, like John Wick and all of that, but when I was younger I was all about the Jane Blonde series, the Zack Power, just James Bond, the young James Bond books. I read all of those, so anything spy related I'm really here for. However, when I was reading this one, I was liking it, but it was taking me so long. I read the first 120 pages and it took me absolutely forever to get there, like months. I'm talking about months. And every time I read the book I enjoyed it, and then every time I put it down I never felt inclined to pick it up. And I just had to cut my losses with this one and decide it's the kind of book that I would have loved if I was a teenager and I just don't love anymore. And so I'm also unhauling the sequel, Icon and Inferno by Mary Lou, because if I didn't finish the first one, there's no way I'm going to read the second one. Now that's enough of DNFs. We're going to the two books that I actively did not enjoy. The first one is The Flesh King by Richard Kadrey. This is the sequel to The Pale House Devil, which I am now going to pretend was a standalone. It's a horror book where there's the undead that live in the same world as the humans, and we're following a duo. One of them is undead and he kills the people who are human, and one of them is human and he kills the undead creatures. This duo of people have expanded to a trio and they've got a new case, and I just really didn't like this, unfortunately. I found the writing to be quite dry and direct and choppy. I think they worked so hard to make the one female character someone who was not a damsel in distress that they underutilized all the other characters. And it's a novella, so it did go quickly and I wasn't dragging my way through the whole thing, but I just wasn't entertained by the end of it and was quite disappointed because I really liked the world building in the first book and this did not expand on that whatsoever, so I will not be keeping this one. Secondly to that, I also read Universality by Natasha Brown, and I just wasn't a big fan of this also literary novella, and I just can't even, you know, think about what this book was about or what it was trying to say or what the message was. It's about a journalist kind of who investigates this case, and then you follow the different people in this case where somebody gets hit over the head with a gold bar, and it's supposed to be commentary on racism and classism, but I don't think it hits the mark on either of those points and just felt like nonsense to me. I just felt like it was just yammering on about stuff that nobody cared about, and it switched points of view loads and loads of times, so you never got invested in any of the characters at all. And by the end of it, I finished it and I was like, what was the point of that? So I will no longer be choosing to read this, like have this in my possession. It can go. The biggest stack that we have here for this unhaul is books that I read and just found fine or good fine or mediocre fine, and I don't keep books that I rate 3 stars, so I don't always share my ratings, but all of these were rated 3 stars for whatever reason. They're a bit of a hodgepodge of feelings towards them, so let me try and break it down as best I can and as quickly as I can. So we have 20 Seconds From Now by Jason Reynolds. Now this is his young adult book about this teenage couple who have decided to make love for the first time, and you start 24 seconds from when they're about to make love, and then you go back 24 minutes, then you go back 24 hours, then you go back 24, etc, etc, etc. So you get to see their love story told in reverse, but you also get to see a nervous black teenage boy who wants to do right by his girlfriend, asking lots of different people for advice and the good and bad advice that he gets. I think this is a really great book for teenagers, not for me, for teenagers, especially for young black boy teenagers on, you know, first times, on love, on sex, and all of that stuff that you need to talk to your black teenage boys about. So yeah, I do think this was a good read. It just is one that is really for its age audience, and as someone who typically enjoys reading young adult, I don't always feel that way, but I felt like an older adult reading this book. I read Tin Man by Sarah Winman when I was on holiday once, and I thought this was again fine. It's a story that has a lot to do with grief, as we follow our middle-aged main character as he's grieving for his wife, and you also know that the best friend is instrumental in his feelings, and also you get to figure out what happened with his best friend. It is queer, it is a little bit historical, it goes into the AIDS crisis a little bit, and I really like the first half of this and then did not like the second half, so I ended up on a mixed bag of feelings. I think Sarah Winman's writing is lovely and beautiful, and the beginning was so emotional and grief soaked, and then we got to the second part which was on the AIDS crisis, and you get into a bit of a question of like, why is Sarah Winman telling this story, and also where is the story going? It's changed a lot in tone, and I just don't really like the main character that the point of view was from, so I just, yeah, felt a bit mixed by the end of this. This is also a bit of a worn secondhand copy that I got from the secondhand shop, and it can go right back there. The Obscene Madame D by Hilda Hirst is a translated literature novella about a young woman who is grieving for, you can see that I like books about grief, who is grieving for her partner who has passed away, and she decides to take all of her clothes off and lock herself underneath the staircase in a wardrobe, and that is what the book is about. As you can tell from the synopsis, it's a little bit weird, and it's very abstract in tone. There's no speech marks, it's all written in stream of consciousness, and I loved the writing style, and I have no idea what was going on in the story. And so because of that, it's going to be a no from me and a not keep, but I did really like the writing style. I just really was lost. I was so lost, and I don't think I was intelligent enough to keep up with what this story was trying to do. I have no clue what that was. I read all of One for All by Lillie Lainoff, I should say, and I thought it was fine. It's not the story that I expected it to be, so that's on me for getting it completely wrong, but this is a young adult historical Three Musketeers retelling that is gender swapped, and it is nice, but it was very long and a bit boring and took ages to get to the point. That said, I do think it had absolutely stellar, fantastic own voices POTS representation, and it doesn't say that it's POTS representation because of course that wasn't diagnosable in its time, but it also has a lot of commentary to say about undiagnosable disabilities and how people were treated in that time, especially women who were said to just be poorly and sickly and undesirable for those reasons. And she also is trying her best to like be strong because she wants to be a musketeer. She wants to be doing those sword fights and fighting for justice. So I do think this had a good overall message in it and a really nice depiction of female friendship, but just for me as a reader personally who doesn't read that many historical books anymore, it was quite dry and boring and predictable, and yeah, I don't need to keep this one. I think somebody else is going to enjoy it a lot more than I did. I talked about this in a previous wrap up, but I read The Inmate by Freida McFadden and I enjoyed it. It was a fun thriller. You got to suspend your disbelief and kind of overlook some of the decisions that the main character makes because they seem a little bit silly to me. But it's still a really fun story, a good story. I raced through this. I was turning the pages and having a great time. But I just don't need to keep my thrillers once I've read them. I know the plot twist, I know what's happening. I don't think I'm going to reread this. I had a good time. It's just never a long time with a thriller, and that is fine by me. Someone else can pick it up, read it, and enjoy it as well. This is a non-fiction memoir called Things in Nature Merely Grow by Yiyun Lee, and it is about this mother whose two sons both choose to take their own lives, and it's about her grieving process and how much she loved her sons. And so this felt very personal, perhaps sometimes a little bit too personal, like it wasn't quite ready to be shared with us because it was so personal and in her thoughts and feelings. She's quite a unique way of processing grief where she really analyzes it and unpicks it in in almost a scientific sense, and that's not necessarily how I grieve, and so I wasn't quite compatible with this book in terms of I feel like it was not for me as a reader who likes reading about grief but could not relate to this in any way at all because it's just not the ways in which I grieve. And so I have a lot of respect for Yiyun Lee for being so brave to write this story but also to share it with other people when it's something so intimate, but at the same time it's just not something I'm going to, you know, return to or reread, and so I don't need to keep it on my shelves. And then lastly, we've got a category here of books that I'm not even going to try but I've decided to unhaul. The first two are based solely on other people's reviews. Hera by Jennifer Saint. I have not read any Jennifer Saint books, and yet I've managed to collect all 4 of the retellings that she's done, and I was looking at them all, which look beautiful with their spines together, but I have just seen so many negative reviews from Hera, from people who haven't read any of her books before, but also from people who have read her books before and enjoyed the previous ones. They all seem to collectively agree that this is the weakest one, and so the weakest link cannot stay on my shelves, and I'm unhauling it unread, but I've still got her other ones, and I fully intend to try at least one of them before hauling it on any of her other books. We have Rebel by Mary Lou. This is largely based on the decision to DNF Stars and Smoke and that series. I think I need to stop reading Mary Lou's young adult now and just pass it on, and so I just think it's time for this one to go as well. I know that Mary Lou has an adult fantasy book that sounds more up my alley than any of her young adult stuff at the moment, so gotta cut my losses with this one. I have Full Disclosure by Camryn Garrett. This is a proof that I got from somebody else's Unhaul. It is a young adult contemporary where our main character has HIV and is black. These are all things that sound like I would really like them. Do you know how many years I've had this on my shelves? Okay, do you know? It's been there for so long, and I think I'm starting to read more of my oldest ones on my TBR, so if it comes up on this is a potential for you to read it right now, and I hold it in my hands and I don't want to read this and I haven't read it for several years, then for why is it on my shelves? It cannot stay there. So I decided it's time for me to lovingly let this one go. And then last but not least, we have Goose of Hermogenes by Ithell Colquhoun. This is in the wrong category. This is in the wrong category. I'm so sorry. This was a DNF. I took this on holiday with me and I read the first 50 pages, I think, and it was so magical realism. And I really like magical realism actually, but it was just so high in the clouds. I don't know if I can describe it, but everything that happened, I was like, wow, it's like it just pulled that out of thin air, and I had no clue what was going on. And I was pushing my way through it because it's only a novella, and I thought, it's so short, you can at least just finish it. Maybe you'll figure it out by the halfway mark. got to the halfway mark and I hadn't figured anything out, so I decided it was time to stop there and even save myself the hour that it would have taken for me to finish the book. So actually we're ending on a DNF, and a book that was in the wrong category, but is still leaving my shelves nonetheless. Oh no, there's more! We've got 2 picture books! So I think I've mentioned on this channel quite a few times that I have the cutest nephew and I give him my picture books, but what I have not mentioned to you all is that I will be an auntie all over again, and this time I'm gonna have a niece for the very first time. So when I'm giving picture books to my nephew, it's now going to my nephew and my future niece. Congratulations to my sister and also to my brother-in-law. Very, very happy for them, and also for my nephew to be a big brother. That is so excited for him, and he is actually honestly so excited to have a sister. But these are the 2 books that I'm giving to both of them. So the first one is The Dress with 100 Pockets by Lily Murray and Jenny Lovelie. I read this and I really, really liked it. I didn't love it as much as the first one. I gave the first one 5 stars and the second one 4 stars, which is not a big difference in rating. It's still a very good book, but it really is just that most of my picture books get passed along to my nephews and now my niece because they can actually, you know, read it and enjoy it. So I really think the message in these books is superb and so fun, and the illustrations are great and the rhyme is flawless, so they're gonna have a good time with that. And I'm also giving them The Night Before Diwali by Swapna Haddo and Darshika Varma. So you may notice from the cross that I'm wearing around my neck, I am a Christian and my family are generally Christians, but I also grew up in an international school and I live in this world, so I find it very important for children to be raised knowing about different people's cultures and different people's festivals, and one of the ways you can do that is through, you know, knowing different people, but also through books, and that gives you a lot of insight. And so I remember celebrating Diwali in international school every single year, and it was such a joyous time. It was lovely, and so I'm really happy to be passing on a book that takes a spin off The Night Before Christmas and kind of puts a Diwali twist on it and gives a lot of information about Diwali, and also has really nice illustrations so they can enjoy that as well. Okay, so there you really have it. Those are all the books that I'm unhauling and passing on to different people, to charity shops and what not. They will all find new homes. Please let me know in the comment section down below. Do you have any nieces? Do you have any nephews? Do you like kids at all? And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!